Welcome back, pilots, to Squadrons Update. This week we're going to be diving into a massive amount of information, both recapping some important news that came to light last week as well as some new info drops that came about this week. Since I took a break from making these news videos to work on my lore content, I'm gonna try my best to get us all caught up with everything, so bear with me on this. Not only are we going to be talking about some new technical features that come with Squadrons, but as well some new cool additions to gameplay like Observer Mode, improved AI, and even the awesome confirmation of voice action compatibility. As always, we'll be covering all of this and more in today's video. And before we get into any of that, but a quick reminder, as if you do like these type of videos, then do remember to give it a like to show your support for not only this update series, but also the content within it. With that out of the way, let's get into it. So, in the last few weeks, the Squadrons playtests officially started, along with the press and EA Game Changers getting their hands on the game as well, which obviously meant we finally got to see some much needed gameplay footage, without any cinematic fluff or that sort. In addition, we also of course got to learn of some new key details that should only increase the hype levels for Squadrons. Let's start with the technical stuff first. According to Squadrons community manager Jay Ingram, Squadrons will support both 5.1 and 7.1 surround sound for that increased immersion factor. In the PC version of the game, players will be able to customize the keys for each command within the cockpit UI, so changing the entire key layout of the different cockpit functions will not be a problem, at least on PC. And while on the topic of different versions of the game, it's also been confirmed now that there will not be a separate version of Squadrons for next-gen consoles, but it will be however possible to run it on them through backwards compatibility. With that said, I am still curious if Squadrons running on a PS5, for example, will play more smoother or maybe have a higher frame rate count. Especially because the hardware on the PS5 is so much better than the PS4, it's not even funny. And if not that, then at the very least playing Squadrons through PSVR on the PS5 should be a more improved experience, and who knows, maybe even be as good or close to it like the game running through PC VR. I mean, console VR players have to at least hope for this to happen. And as it's been said plenty of times already, yes, playing Squadrons in VR is going to be a unique experience in which you won't be able to get anywhere else. And a neat little feature made exclusive to Squadrons VR is that players will be able to see the nose of their X-Wing starfighter as well the astromech behind them, something of which you normally wouldn't be able to do in the game. Of course, it's not a big deal in terms of exclusivity for some people, but it's a nice little touch for increased immersion. A few other miscellaneous things to take note of is the music and the customization in Squadrons. Since the gameplay reveal of Squadrons last week, we've been able to see a lot of the customization options available within the alpha version. However, that's not quite all of them, as Jay has confirmed that the final version of the game will contain a lot more cosmetics than what was seen in the alpha. So that's for sure a little something more to look forward to for the final release of Squadrons. As for the music, well, that's going to be dynamic in the game, as it's going to be changing in depending on whatever phase you're in fleet battles, just like in Battlefront 2. And like there, it's going to be composed entirely by Gordy Hab, who also did Battlefront 2's soundtrack. And having put all of that out there, it's not all good news, as Motive creative director Ian Fraser has confirmed that unfortunately, while the game will support cross-play, it will however not allow for cross-progression. So any progress you get done on the PC, for example, you won't be able to move that onto your console version and continue from there, and vice versa. Not a major deal breaker by any means, but a disappointment nonetheless. And a kind of odd thing to admit as well, especially since a lot of other crossplay games do allow for cross-progression, so it's very strange that Squadrons doesn't. And with that out of the way, let's dig into the meat and potatoes of Squadrons and go over the gameplay news. In terms of spawning or respawning, in Dogfights mode you'll simply spawn onto the battlefield in space, which is pretty identical to how it's done in Starfighter Assault and Battlefront 2. Whereas Fleet Battles does things a little bit more immersive-wise, because in there, you and your squadron will fly out of a flagship's hangar each time you need to respawn. And in addition to that, the scale of the capital and flagships in the game is apparently said to be 1-to-1. So this means that the size of the capital and flagships relative to your ship will be much more larger than compared to Battlefront 2, which didn't have any accurate ship scaling at all. The AI, on the other hand, will however be using the same system that was developed by Criterion for Battlefront 2, as both games do run on the Frostbite engine. However, it has been said to be heavily modified in recent years by Motive. But as for how good they are, that's subjective, at least according to Jay, who has said that they're good enough to have fun with, but at the same time they're not any pushovers either. That said, the AI from the first mission of the single-player campaign is apparently heavily nerfed, so anyone expecting the rest of the AI to play like that, especially in online games, will be in for quite the surprise. As for Contrails, there has been an update to that situation, because based on the community's feedback on the first two game trailers, Motive have since decided to listen to the community and correct them. And as a result, Contrails will now only show up when players reach certain speeds and are in general much less visible. Personally, I didn't really notice that much of a problem with Contrails at first, but since going back and watching those trailers, then yeah, I can see why some people had a problem with them. Squadrons is all about that immersion factor, and those very visible contrails everywhere before didn't quite work with that. Then again, what is incredibly immersive to Starfighter action is in-game pickups. Okay, I'm joking about that, but yeah, if you didn't like them back in Battlefront 2015, then you may not be too happy to learn that in-game pickups in Squadrons is definitely a thing. According to Jay on this, support ships will be able to shoot out pickups containing repair drones and ammo for allied starfighters. If they manage to lock onto an ally, the resupply will go straight to them. But if not, then it'll just hang out in space waiting for someone else to pick it up. Meanwhile, in Dogfights mode, pickups will also exist there too and be randomly generated throughout the battlefield. And just like in fleet battles, these will also be resupply and healing pickups. The point of having them there is so that people can stay in the battle longer, without of course always needing a support ship near them. Granted, folks looking for the most immersive mode in the game will without a doubt be spending majority of their time playing in fleet battles, as we now have confirmation that your corvettes, capital ships, in addition to your flagship, will attack both enemy players and other enemy ships. So not only will players have to watch out for attacking AI starfighters and the flagship itself, but those corvettes and capital ships will certainly be doing a lot more than sitting pretty in the background. Fortunately, if you do get caught around too much enemy craft, you'll be able to redirect all of your power to shields and engines, but at the expense of leaving your weapons completely without it. So basically, you'll want to stock up power to your engines and shields, get out of the hotspot alive, or at least wait until for backup, and only then put power back into your weapons to be able to defend yourself. That said, if you do go all in on shields, you'll have to watch out for ion cannons, as those inflict high damage to shields but minimal damage to the hull. But the added benefit is that the sustained fire on a hull will disable enemy ships for a time, allowing them to be taken out by missiles or allies very easily. And if you do get taken out, there will be a 20-second spawn timer you'll have to wait before you can jump back in. Motive have, however, said that they're still looking at the feedback regarding the timer, and thus it may still change to something shorter before release. Some other neat things to point out is that balance doesn't seem to be an issue in Squadrons, as Jay has stated that thus far the balance on wins per factions in the game is 50-50, so that's without a doubt a good sign. Squadrons will also have a neat little feature called Observer Mode, where players can join games that their friends are participating in and watch them. It should be noted that this is exclusive to only those on your friends list, as you will not be able to spectate random games. Another real cool feature that Squadrons is adding is compatibility with voice attack. For those unaware, voice attack is a program on PC that you can designate certain phrases or keyboard/button presses as commands, then have a voice sequence activate them. For example, this can be done by assigning a command to switching power by saying simply R4 divert all power to shields, with voice attack afterwards hearing that and then pressing the necessary keys or combos to put all your power to shields. Of course, that's just the basic stuff, as you can even create something complicated like a series of pre-recorded joystick or throttle movements, which the game will do for you after you say something like evasive maneuvers. Yeah, for real, it's a pretty sweet and flexible program with a ton of potential in a game like Squadrons. This could really be great, especially for those intense moments in VR, where you'll really feel like you're piloting a real starfighter. But while that sounds all good and very exciting for PC players, it has to be stressed that because voice attack is a PC program, then it seems unlikely that this feature will be available on consoles too. Maybe Motive could figure out to do something similar on the Xbox through the Kinect, or PS4 with the PlayStation camera. Although at this time it's not something I would personally expect to happen, especially given this game's lower budget, but who knows, maybe in the future, especially if the game sales will be good. But until the next time, this will do it for your Squadrons update. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel to not only support it, but also keep up with Star Wars news, gaming, and canon lore released every week. And consider following me on Twitter and Facebook to never miss out on the latest Star Wars content. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.